in Turkey, a structure older than Stonehenge by 7,000 years, was built by people who had not yet invented farming. In Bolivia, stone blocks weighing 131 tons were cut with geometric precision that modern stonemasons cannot replicate, then transported 56 miles across a high-altitude mountain range. On a remote coral reef in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, a city of 92 artificial islands was constructed from basalt columns weighing up to 50 tons, and no one alive today knows how a single one of them was moved. These are not rumors. These are not myths passed down around campfires. Every single one of these places has been surveyed, studied, and documented by professional archaeologists, and not one of them has been satisfactorily explained. Today we will walk through 7 real archaeological sites that have left the world's best researchers scratching their heads. No fiction, no exaggeration, only the measurements, the dates, the testimonies of engineers, and the silence that follows when the questions run out. Turkey, Thonliofra Province, 1994. German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt arrived at a rocky hill called Göbekli Tepe, meaning belly hill in Turkish, after reviewing a 1963 survey conducted jointly by Istanbul University and the University of Chicago. The original survey team had dismissed the site as a medieval burial ground. Schmidt took one look at the limestone slabs protruding from the earth and understood immediately that they were standing in front of something far older. Excavations began in 1995. What came out of the ground rewrote human history. Beneath the hill lay enormous T-shaped limestone pillars, arranged in circular formations, some of them standing over 5 meters tall and weighing as much as 50 tons. The pillars were covered in carved reliefs of scorpions, foxes, lions, vultures, and human hands, images of extraordinary artistic sophistication. Carbon dating placed the earliest layers of Göbekli Tepe firmly at 9,600 BCE. That is 12,000 years ago. To put that in perspective, the Great Pyramid of Giza was built around 2,500 BCE. The oldest known writing appeared around 3,400 BCE. Göbekli Tepe predates farming, pottery, and the wheel. It was constructed by hunter-gatherers. People archaeology had long assumed were incapable of complex social organization, let alone large-scale architectural planning. As of 2021, only approximately 10% of the site has been excavated. Geophysical surveys have revealed that the mound contains at least 20 large enclosures still buried underground. UNESCO designated it a World Heritage Site in 2018, calling it one of the first manifestations of human-made monumental architecture. The question that haunts every researcher who has stood here remains the same: who organized thousands of people, who had no agriculture and no permanent settlements, to quarry, carve, and erect 50-ton pillars in precisely aligned circles? And why? Someone made this decision before humanity had developed the tools we associate with civilization, and then, deliberately, they buried it. Around 8,000 BCE, the entire complex was intentionally covered with earth. No one knows why. Bolivia, Andes Mountains, 3,800 meters above sea level, near the shores of Lake Titicaca, in the western highlands of Bolivia, lie the ruins of Puma Punku, which translates from Aymara as Gate of the Puma. Construction at this site is believed to have begun after 536 CE, making it part of the Tiwanaku civilization that at its peak supported a population of roughly 400,000 people. By around 1000 CE, the culture had abruptly vanished. Researchers believe a prolonged drought collapsed the agricultural system, and the people scattered into the mountains. What they left behind is one of the most baffling collections of stone workmanship on the planet. The largest stone block at Puma Punku measures 7.81 meters long, 5.17 meters long, 5.17 meters wide, and averages 1.07 meters thick. Its estimated weight is 131 tons. The second largest weighs 85 tons. These red sandstone blocks were transported from a quarry near Lake Titicaca, roughly 10 kilometers away, across steep, difficult terrain. Smaller blocks of andesite, a much harder volcanic rock, were brought from quarries on the Copacabana Peninsula, approximately 90 kilometers away and across the lake itself. The Tiwanaku had no wheels and no draft animals capable of moving loads of this scale. Yet the blocks arrived, and they were worked. What researchers find most disturbing is not the transportation, it is the precision. Archaeologist Alexei Vranich and his colleagues documented H-shaped interlocking blocks at Puma Punku with drilled holes of remarkable uniformity. The flat interior surfaces of these carvings are so consistently level that researchers who attempted to replicate them using period-appropriate stone tools, flint blades, obsidian chisels, quartzite hammers, found they could reproduce the cross-shaped designs but could not achieve the ubiquitous flat interior surfaces. Researcher Sean Donahue's replication attempt took approximately 40 hours per small section. Scaling that to the thousands of carvings at the site produces a labor estimate that strains all conventional models. Ground-penetrating radar has since revealed an underground network of residences and water conduits beneath the site that has still not been fully mapped. Micronesia, Pacific Ocean, island of Pohnpei. Off the eastern coast of the island of Pohnpei, partially submerged and surrounded by mangrove swamps, lie the ruins of Madol, an ancient ceremonial city built on top of a coral reef. It is believed to be the only ancient city ever constructed directly on a coral reef in the known archaeological record. The city consists of 92 artificial islands separated by tidal canals, covering an area of approximately 18 square kilometers. It was the political and ceremonial capital of the Sotoler dynasty, which ruled Pohnpei from roughly 1100 CE until around 1628 CE. The walls and platforms of Madol were built using columnar basalt logs, naturally hexagonal prisms of volcanic rock that form when lava cools slowly. The individual columns weigh between 5 and 50 tons. They were stacked in alternating horizontal and vertical layers, like a log cabin, to heights of up to 7.5 meters. Archaeologists estimate that the total volume of basalt used in construction exceeds 750,000 tons. The nearest source of columnar basalt on Pohnpei is at the northern tip of the island, roughly 30 kilometers from the construction site. There are no roads. The terrain between the quarry and the reef is dense jungle, interrupted by river estuaries. The Sotoler had no metal tools and no wheeled vehicles. UNESCO added Madol to its list of World Heritage Sites in Danger in 2016. Local Pohnpeian oral tradition holds that the founders of Madol, twin sorcerers named Olisipa and Olosopa, used magic to fly the basalt columns into place. Archaeologists have proposed log rollers, bamboo rafts, and organized canoe fleets as transport mechanisms. No study has been able to demonstrate how 50-ton stone columns were loaded, floated across open water, and stacked with structural precision on an unstable coral reef. The builders left no written records, no construction diagrams, and no tools large enough to explain the work. Peru, above the city of Cusco, Andean highlands, on a steep hill overlooking what the Inca called the Novel of the World, stands Sacsayhuamán, a massive ceremonial and military complex whose name is often translated as Royal Eagle or Satisfied Falcon in Quechua. The structure is famous above all else for its 3 parallel zigzag walls, each one rising to approximately 9 meters in height. These walls are constructed from enormous limestone and diorite blocks, the largest of which weigh an estimated 200 tons, roughly the weight of 30 fully grown African elephants. What engineers find impossible to ignore is the joinery. The blocks of Sacsayhuamán are polygonal, many-sided, irregular in shape, and yet they fit together with such exactness that, as countless researchers and travelers have documented over centuries, it is impossible to slide a single sheet of paper between them. There is no mortar. The blocks interlock through their own carved surfaces. Spanish chronicler Pedro de Cieza de León, writing in the 1550s, shortly after the Spanish conquest, described the walls as so remarkable that he doubted they could have been built without the help of demons. Modern structural engineers have noted that the irregular polygonal interlocking system makes Sacsayhuamán highly resistant to seismic activity, a critical quality in earthquake-prone Peru. Whether the Inca consciously engineered this seismic tolerance or arrived at it through empirical trial and error remains a matter of debate. The Inca themselves, according to colonial-era Spanish records, attributed the construction of the oldest and largest stones to a civilization that preceded them, a people they called the Viracocha, divine beings who supposedly came before human history. Spanish engineers brought to assess the site in the 16th century concluded that even with all the manpower of the Spanish Empire and the construction technology of Renaissance Europe, they could not have replicated it. Today, experimental archaeology continues to study the site, but no team has successfully demonstrated the full process by which 200-ton irregular blocks were quarried, shaped with mirror precision, transported uphill, and locked together without modern machinery. Lebanon, Bekaa Valley, ancient city of Baalbek. At the base of the anti-Lebanon mountain range, in a valley that has been inhabited for at least 9,000 years, lies the ancient city of Baalbek. The Romans built one of their most spectacular temple complexes here, the Temple of Jupiter, beginning in the 1st century BCE. The complex is jaw-dropping by any measure, but beneath the Roman construction and partially incorporated into it, lies something that stops engineers cold. The foundation platform of the Temple of Jupiter contains 3 of the most colossal cut stones ever placed in a structure on Earth. These 3 stones, known collectively as the Trilithon, each measure approximately 19 meters in length, 4 meters in height, and 3.6 meters in width. Each one weighs an estimated 800 tons. They are fitted together so tightly that they appear to be a single continuous surface. They sit roughly 8 meters above ground level, resting on smaller but still enormous foundation stones, just outside the temple precinct. Lying in a nearby quarry where it was apparently abandoned is a single megalith known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. It measures approximately 21.5 meters long and is estimated to weigh between 1,000 and 1,242 tons, making it the largest known cut stone block in human history. The Romans were extraordinary builders, but Roman construction records and engineering manuals from the same period describe cranes and lifting devices capable of moving loads measured in tens of tons, not hundreds. Structural engineer Herman Tom, who studied the Trilithon extensively, concluded that even modern heavy-lift cranes, the kind used to assemble offshore oil platforms, would struggle to reposition a single Trilithon stone once in place. The question of who cut the stones in the quarry, how they were transported, and how they were raised nearly 8 meters and positioned with such precision has never been answered. The Romans themselves may not have moved them. They may have simply built their temple on top of a foundation that was already there. Turkey, Cappadocia region, underground. In the 1960s, a local man in the town of Derinkuyu was renovating his home when he knocked through a wall and found a passage leading downward. The passage did not end. Archaeologists were called in, and over the following years, the true scale of what lay beneath the volcanic plains of Cappadocia became clear. Derinkuyu is an underground city, carved entirely by hand from soft volcanic tuff rock, extending at least 18 stories, approximately 85 meters, straight down into the earth. It is large enough to have sheltered an estimated 20,000 people, along with their livestock and food supplies, for extended periods of time. The city is a complete civilizational infrastructure. It contains ventilation shafts engineered so precisely that fresh air circulates through every level, even at the deepest points. The main ventilation shaft is 55 meters deep. The city has wells that draw from underground aquifers, storage rooms, wineries, oil presses, chapels, schools, and stables. Each level is connected by narrow tunnels that could be sealed from the inside by large circular stone doors, millstone-shaped boulders up to half a meter thick and weighing 200 to 500 kilograms, which rolled into channels carved specifically to receive them. An attacker could not push the stones from the outside. The city is conventionally attributed to the Phrygians, a pre-Greek Anatolian civilization, with later Christian modifications added during the Byzantine period. However, the full original construction date is disputed, and some researchers argue the deepest levels predate the Phrygians entirely. What engineers cannot explain is how ancient builders, working without modern drilling equipment, carved ventilation shafts of consistent diameter through 55 meters of solid rock while maintaining the airflow engineering required to make them functional. Derinkuyu is also connected by a kilometer-long underground tunnel to a second equally vast underground city called Göbekli. As of today, only a fraction of both cities has been mapped. Geophysical surveys suggest there may be hundreds of additional underground settlements beneath the Cappadocian plains. The scale of the project implies a level of planning, geological knowledge, and coordinated labor that no surviving historical record from the region describes. Laos, Xinjiang Plateau, Southeast Asia. Scattered across the highland plains of northern Laos, across an area of nearly 1,000 square kilometers, are thousands of enormous stone jars. They have no lids, most have no inscriptions. They were discovered by French archaeologist Madeleine Colani in the 1930s, and have been studied intermittently ever since. The site known as the Plain of Jars is now recognized across at least 90 documented locations, and archaeologists estimate there are at least 3,000 individual jars spread across the plateau, with many more likely undiscovered due to decades of unexploded ordnance from the Vietnam War era, making systematic excavation dangerous. The jars range from 1 meter to 3 meters in height and weigh between 1 and several tons each. Most are carved from sandstone, though others are made from granite, limestone, and conglomerate rock. Radiocarbon dating of organic material found inside several jars has placed their construction somewhere between 1240 BCE and 600 CT, the Iron Age. The jars appear to have been manufactured with consistent technique, suggesting knowledge of appropriate materials and tools. Though no definitive evidence of the specific instruments used has been found, local legends recorded by Kalani describe a race of giants who used the jars as drinking vessels during celebrations. One legend credits a king named Kun Chung with ordering their construction as storage for rice wine following a military victory. What confounds researchers is that Xinjiang province contains no large sources of the rock types used for the majority of the jars. The stone was quarried and transported to the plateau from distant sources, yet no quarry site has been positively identified for many of the jar varieties. The cultural group responsible for constructing them, their name, their language, their social structure has left no written record, no surviving art tradition that connects to another known civilization, and no burial site large enough to explain a population capable of this scale of construction. When Kalani excavated around the jars, she found cremated human remains, glass beads, ceramics, and iron tools buried nearby, evidence of funerary practice. But the jars themselves, some big enough to hold a human body, have given up no consistent explanation for their use. They stand on a highland plateau in the middle of mainland Southeast Asia, pointing at nothing. 7 sites. 7 genuinely documented mysteries. None of them require supernatural explanation. None of them need ancient gods or visitors from other worlds. What they require is something more uncomfortable. The acknowledgement that we have been telling ourselves a story about the past in which human capability develops in a straight, manageable line, from simple to complex, from primitive to advanced, and that story does not fit the evidence in the ground. The people who built Göbekli Tepe had not yet grown their first field of wheat. The people who cut the trilithon stones at Baalbek left blocks so heavy that we have no confirmed record of how they were moved. The people who built Madol, on an open coral reef in the middle of the Pacific, carved a city from stone and have not told us how. Every one of these sites has been touched by real archaeologists, measured by real engineers, and debated in real academic journals. Every one of them ends in the same place, a question without a satisfying answer. The real mystery is not that these places exist, the real mystery is how completely we forgot the people who built them.